Pain is a growth mechanism to guide us to where our weaknesses are. Driven Mofos, welcome back to another episode of The Underestimated Entrepreneur. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Michael Mojo. I'm the owner of Mojo Human Performance Institute, where we focus on business, mindset, and lifestyle hacking for driven mofos. And the reason why I do these podcasts or these episodes is because most people waste their life, and I just don't want you to be one of them. I want to say a massive thank you and a massive shout out to all of those who have been sharing this podcast with all their friends, their family. It's awesome to hop on LinkedIn and see a heap of you that have screenshotted you listening to it, or have been, I shouldn't say driving around and recording on Instagram and sharing you listening to it. But it's really cool to see the impact that this community is having out there, and that the community is growing daily, which is absolutely amazing. It blows my mind. So a massive thank you to all of those out there who have been sharing this on your social media platforms, who have also been jumping on YouTube as well and liking and commenting or subscribing. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't already done so, jump across to our YouTube channel because I'm posting extra bonus content on there. There's extra trainings that are way more in depth where I can actually go into breaking things down. So please jump across there, hit that subscribe button as well. And remember, keep sharing this with your friends, your family. The more I can get this stuff out there, the better it's going to be for everybody as well. I just hope that, this information is valuable in some way, shape, or form. All right, so let's talk about pain. Pain is a growth mechanism to guide us to where our weaknesses are. Now, I realized this years ago when I was working in the health industry, and I was working in a medical center. I was doing strength and conditioning. I was also a Pilates instructor, so I used to do Pilates with the physios and that to get people back and do, physical rehabilitation. I'd work with like Work Cover and a whole bunch of other people. And I was also doing personal training. So I'm working in this medical center, and I started noticing that people consistently had pain in their weak areas. And so if you've got someone with lower back pain, it's normally not because they have a strong back, it's normally because they have a weak back. And then I started noticing this in other areas. So, over the years in our business, if we've got pain in the marketing department, it's normally because marketing's not working. And it's showing us where our gaps are or where our weaknesses are. Now, in this day and age, most people just avoid dealing with pain. It's so easy if you've got back pain to go into the chemist and you just grab some pills and you pop them and everything will be okay. That works, but what will happen is over time you'll start to compensate. So you start creating these compensations around pain instead of using it to show you where your weaknesses are so that you can turn your weaknesses into strengths. Now, I also remember watching the Matt Fraser documentary. Now, Matt Fraser is the 4 times CrossFit champion, so fittest man on the planet. I believe it was 4 times. It might have been 5. I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me. But anyway, so he was the fittest person on the planet. If you haven't watched the documentary, I highly recommend you go and watch it. But anyway, he consistently spoke about finding his weaknesses and working on them and making them stronger. Now, I want to make sure that people don't blow this out of context, because what I would say is you want to know your strengths and use those strengths, but you've got to find the weak spots in your strengths. So for me, my strength, my highest value is teaching and learning. My second highest value is connecting with people. My third is business and wealth creation. And then my fourth is exercising and fitness. So I want to find where my weak spots are in those values and then go out there and make them stronger because they make me better. Whereas what most people think is that they go out there and they work on their weaknesses in areas that aren't important to them, which then make them average at everything. That's not a good idea. If you have a look at a professional athlete, they're looking like Tiger Woods is focusing on how to improve his golf stroke and is looking at his weaknesses in that area. He's not out there trying to figure out how to do paper mache. He doesn't give a shit about that because that's not where his strong point is. That's not his natural value tendency. I go through a lot of this stuff at our Thrive Time event for that specific reason, because most people try to be good at everything, which is why they crap at everything and average and mediocre. You want to know where you excel. You want to know what your strengths are, and you also want to know where your weaknesses in those strengths, which are known as values. Now, you can go and study the field of axiology like I did and spend bloody years doing it and, go and read the data and all that stuff to try to figure all this stuff out. Now, most people, when they try to figure out their values, they mix them all up and get them matched around, and they've got something called implanted values where they think that their values are their values, but they're actually someone else's values, and that's why they get confused and self-sabotage. So when you get clear on your values and you're really, really clear with them, you can actually get out there and do what you do really, really well and work on that and become stronger in it, which then helps you to excel. And that's how you get in the top 1% of everything that you do. And that's why there's a lot of people all around the world who are extremely gifted. Well, they're not gifted. It's just that they understand their gifts and they work with them. And then they work on the weaknesses within those gifts to make them stronger and then better. So I would recommend that you do that because it's going to be super important. Now, just in general, if you're getting pain in any area of life or you're getting pain in your business, it's time to go and switch on your observation goggles. Get out there, have a bit of a look. See what's going on. See how you can improve that area. If your finances are a problem, dive into them, look into them. Now, if that's not your strong point, then go and get people around you who can work with your values and then start working on that area. Finances were never a strong point for me. But what I found was once I linked them to my values and I realized that finances were just a skill set that was me essentially learning that then I could teach, it linked with my values and bang, I love doing it. So if you can link things to your values, then you'll be extremely good at them. If you don't link things to your values, you'll keep procrastinating, hesitating, self-sabotaging. You'll put it off to later and then you never get around to it. This is why human behavior is probably the most important thing and the greatest investment that you'll ever make in your business. Most people just don't do it though because they don't see an immediate ROI on it. You know, like for me to change, back when I was like 21 and I decided to go to my first personal development event, and everyone told me that I was crazy and I was stupid and I was insane and that I was going to get ripped off and that people were going to take my money. Well, that might have been true, but at the same time, I was just trying to make a very small change to move me in the right direction. Now, 20 years later or 18 years later or whatever it is, now those same friends look at me and go, we always knew you'd succeed. We'd always knew you'd achieve. Why? Because I did something that was just different outside of the norm, but also was something that just put me in a different direction. Most people won't do that because they don't see an immediate return. It's so much easier to go out and spend $1,000 on a new TV and go, wow, I've got the biggest big screen TV in my house. It's fucking amazing. Because why? I just spent $1,000 and I got something immediately. Whereas when you've got to work on yourself, you invest that money and then you slowly start building habits. You slowly start thinking differently. And over time, after a while, you just become an absolute weapon with your own mindset and how you think. And it's completely different than the majority of other people. But that shit doesn't happen overnight. Just like when you walk into a gym, you can't walk into a gym, you pay a gym membership and look in the mirror and go, shit, I haven't lost all this weight yet. You've got to put in the work to develop those skills and those habits. But once you get them, very, very hard to lose them. There are lots of people out there, all my gym junkies who are listening at the moment know this. Like, how hard is it to not go to the gym now? Because you've developed those skill sets, and maybe at first it was hard, but now, piece of cake. It's just what you do. That's what happens when you make those small changes over a long and extended period of time that help you to make better decisions, but most people would rather do things that are immediately gratifying because they live in a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is responsive. It's part of our emotional center. And what it does is it swings between pleasure and it swings between pain. And so anything that's pleasurable will eventually lead to pain, and then pain leads to pleasure, and they have these vicious cycles that they go around in. So this is something that I hope that you're becoming really aware of. But if you can go and get clear with your values, understand yourself at a high level, know what your strengths are, get really, really good at them and keep investing in them, but at the same time, try to figure out where the pain is within those values, then get out there and keep working on them, you'll become an absolute weapon. And when I say a weapon, I mean that in a good way, not a bad way. Like, you'll become amazing at what you do. And then if you can figure out, which we teach this at our Thrive Time event, if you understand how to link things to your values, you can essentially change your habits within an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you really focus, you just get down to it, you link things. Now, I do this a couple of times a week. I still use those tools that I teach at Thrive Time. Why? Because they freaking work. Like, I would rather work and link something to my values that takes an hour. Now, I meet plenty of people go, well, I don't have an hour. Well, you don't have an hour because you waste it on Facebook and social media and doing other shit that is non-productive. And then at the end of the week, you go, I haven't achieved what I wanted. Why? Because you wasted half of your week doing shit that was non-productive. You were procrastinating, creating smoke screens, self-sabotaging, getting stuck in your head because of all these crazy thoughts and ideas, beating yourself up because you're not getting where you want. It's just so much easier to just put in the work and just do the work. Like, there are lots of people out there who think about going to the gym, but they never go to the gym. If they put that same effort and energy and time into just fucking going to the gym, they'd have the result. But most people would rather spend the time sitting there thinking about it instead of actually doing it. High achievers would just rather get shit done and do things. What I find is the more time I spend thinking, the worse my brain gets. The more time I spend actually doing things and committing to things and just going for it, the quieter my brain is. Like, on days where I'm super productive, I go to bed at nighttime, my brain's completely quiet. Whereas on days where I spend a couple of hours here on Facebook and I get caught in a couple of meetings that run over time, and then I get on the phone and I waste time and I dabble around. When that happens, my brain is crazy at nighttime, and I've got to go and use some of the tools that I teach at Thrive Time in order to balance my brain out, because my brain's going, dude, what are you doing? The most valuable thing you have is your time, and you just wasted a day. What the fuck? And so it's just so much easier to get shit done. You want to use pain as your friend, not as your enemy. So use pain, work with it, but make sure you don't go outside of your values. Keep working on your strengths and make them stronger. If not, link to your values so that then you don't procrastinate and self-sabotage. Hope that helps, Driven Mofos. Also, if you haven't rated and reviewed this podcast and you are loving these podcasts, then all you need to do is whatever app you're listening to it on, there should be a little star there with whatever the number is next to it. Just click on that and you can automatically rate and review the podcast. It really makes a massive difference because it pushes us out to more people. So if you haven't done that, please hit that review button. You just got to click the star rating. It will literally take like 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds if you've got to think about it. But it'll literally take that long. So if you haven't done so, please make sure you rate the podcast. And for anyone who can write a review, especially on the Apple Podcast app, that makes a massive difference as well, because I screenshot them, I send them to our team, I share it with others as well. Please, if you can do that as well, if you're listening on the Apple Podcast app, it makes a massive difference. If you're watching this on YouTube as well, please hit that subscribe button. Anyway, Driven Mofos, I hope this helps. Keep living with Mojo, keep pushing hard, stay driven, and never underestimate the dream.